Okay, we're back. Peace, everybody. Blake Nelson here, and welcome to another installment of Scarecrow's Chamber. Now, today, we remain in the realm of cinema. And I would like to talk about a feature film that is pretty well known to a lot of people. Even if you've never seen this particular film, I'm sure that many have heard of it because it's also been referenced a lot in pop culture. And of course, I'm talking about the 1984 science fiction action film directed by James Cameron, The Terminator. Terminator, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator, a cybernetic assassin sitting back in time from 2029 to 1984 to kill Sarah Connor, whose unborn son will one day save mankind from extinction by Skynet, a hostile artificial intelligence in a post-apocalyptic future. Kyle Reese is a soldier sent back in time to protect Sarah. Now, right off the top, this film really doesn't waste any time. For those who haven't seen it, Arnold Schwarzenegger, we all know who he is, being the Terminator. They get right into it right at the beginning. He's sent back in time through this little time sphere, and the funny thing about it, you can only go through the time sphere completely nude. I don't know why, but I believe, Reese mentioned something about it, I forget. But, he and Reese are, sent back in time, and it's all about who is going to get to Sarah first. Now, Schwarzenegger, this was the early days, right? So, he was just fresh off, I believe, Conan the Barbarian and all that stuff, and he comes into this film. So this was Schwarzenegger back in his prime, so he was still, a big bulky guy, so physically opposing, just wrecking house, kicking ass, taking names. Now the funny thing about, the first one, I guess you can say, Schwarzenegger's performance, he, really seemed, I guess you could say he probably, me personally, I think the second one, he really had it down better in the second one, but it's probably because he was seen more as the good guy in the second one. He had to protect, Sarah, and he had to protect her son in the second one, but in the first one, Schwarzenegger was really just getting into it and stuff like that. So, I remember him talking about, he had discussions with director Cameron, and really having to capture the essence of a machine. And obviously, in the first one, compared to the second one, I guess you could say the first one was a little dated compared to the second one. The second one still holds up. Judgment Day. If you have not seen it, one of the greatest, action films of all time. The first one. But that was the one that started it all. That was the one that had the famous, "I'll be back" line that Schwarzenegger has said in the film. I don't know who came up with it, probably Cameron. But yeah, man, it's just I don't know if Cameron himself was going for, a horror aspect to it, but it sure did seem that way. It really did. Because the Terminator doesn't have any feelings, right? It's just like Kyle Reese said, that famous line when he says, "The Terminator is out there. It can't be bargained with. It can't be reasoned with. It doesn't feel pity or remorse or fear, and it absolutely will not stop ever until you are dead." So every time you see the Terminator, it's just laser focused on you, and I like how they show those few point of view shots from the Terminator, with the red and all that stuff. So just the special effects and stuff, like I said, this was right around that time when I was talking about in the Jurassic Park day. This was one of those, but this was before that, in the first Terminator, and they were really, trying to bridge the gap between stop motion. But in the thing about this, you see more of the stop motion, and you see more of the animatronic stuff being played out in the first film. For example, that one scene where the Terminator is, I guess you could say, is kind of like doing surgery on itself, right? And he's taking the eye out and all that stuff, and you can see the animatronics being really, put the work in that particular scene. I mean, you can really tell. But I tell you, man, they get right into it with the brutality that the Terminator does throughout that film, the first film. He goes into the gun shop asking for all these guns and stuff like that, and the guy says, I forget what he asked him, but he just blows the guy away and just. And the funny thing about it, I remember Schwarzenegger himself talking about it, during the filming of that first film. They didn't have the budget, I guess you can say, for everything. So, I mean, you saw him smashing through cars and all that stuff. The funny thing was Schwarzenegger said those were actual, just real people's cars. They weren't props or anything. So what Schwarzenegger would do, they said that he would just smash the windows and then they would leave a note and stuff like that. So I guess the studios paid for to get them fixed. But those were actual cars that he was smashing through in the neighborhood scene and stuff like that. It's just crazy. And Linda Hamilton, who plays Sarah, she was saying that she originally didn't want to work with Schwarzenegger, which is understandable because Schwarzenegger came out of the bodybuilding scene, and she was a prestige actress, a theater actor trained in New York, and then she went out to Los Angeles to do this film. But she had her doubts working with him. I guess that's kind of a well-known thing in the acting world. People who are trained, and then they see other people come from different avenues of entertainment, whether it's sports or something like that. But Schwarzenegger, like I said, this role was tailor made for him. It was just like Conan the Barbarian. I remember him talking about it. There were roles that were tailor made for him because back in those days, the 1980s, the leading men, they were always like big, bulky guys. They were like the guns holding, cigar smoking, kicking ass, taking names. Those type of roles, like Stallone was like another one. Now, probably talk about him in some films that he did. But those roles in the '80s was all about that. The big macho type guys and stuff like that. And Schwarzenegger himself said that he got that role because of he just physically looked the part and stuff like that. And I don't know if this is true or not, but I remember Schwarzenegger saying something that originally O.J. Simpson was going to be like, he was like recommended to be the Terminator and stuff. And then I remember Schwarzenegger saying, but Simpson didn't get the role because, I guess, quote, somebody had said because he didn't look menacing enough. And which is kind of ironic given the case, the famous O.J. trial and all that stuff. So whether he did or didn't, that's that's. I digress after that one. But it's funny to know that O.J. Simpson probably could possibly have been the Terminator, which would have been freaking hilarious. And I think Schwarzenegger, was going to be Reese. I don't know. It was something like that. I remember Schwarzenegger mentioning that somewhere, one of these interviews. But yeah, man, this was a film that really, really set a tone, and it was something. And I believe Cameron said he devised the premise of this film from like a dream that he had or something. It was right around the time he released his first film. It was a film called Piranha 2, The Spawning. That was like 2 years earlier. And just the production of it. The development and stuff like that. But I can remember one particular scene during like the car chase and all that stuff. Reese had to. He was like making all of these bombs and stuff like that, and just I don't know. That's the one thing that always puzzled me about filmmaking in general is like when you see like these car chases and stuff like that, and all of these vehicles blowing up and all that stuff. Like, it just, where do you get the budget for all this stuff and all this destruction and stuff like that? But besides all of the chaos and all of the the horror and all of the stuff that the Terminator was doing, I love the tension between Kyle and Sarah as well. Kyle being just random guy that's coming from the future, and he pretty much has to convince Sarah what the Terminator is and what was the Terminator's motive to come hunt her down and all that stuff. So he pretty much breaks it down. Obviously, it takes some time for him to convince her, Everybody thinks Kyle's crazy, which is understandable, right? Some random guys saying he's from the future and all that stuff. But I love the tension that builds up throughout it, and he tells her that her unborn son, or her son in the future, I guess, is leading the rebellion because going into Terminator 2, there's a guy by the name of what's his name, Dyson, something like that, where he developed a program called Skynet, and that was manufactured in Cyberdyne Systems. Skynet is pretty much this artificial intelligence that was created by Dyson, and sooner or later, the programming that was going to turn against humanity, and there was rise of the machines, and this big war was supposed to happen, and all that stuff, and that goes into the second one where they try to convince him to not, go through with this program that he developed. And man, it just the playback, going from the future, going back to the present day. And of course, the famous scene where the Terminator goes into the the police station, and that's when he says the famous line, "I'll be back." And then he goes up, he drives, he drives the car right into police station and starts raising hell, and just. And the funny thing about it is, like in the first film, it's kind of like the cops. The cops were kind of like the guys that you didn't like in this way. It just seemed that way because obviously, Reese being this random guy that nobody believes and stuff like that. So everybody was pretty much a skeptic and stuff like that. So that was something that Reese went through on the first one, and then it carries over into the second film where nobody believes Sarah after all that stuff happened. But just the design of the actual Terminator when you see it, obviously, because the Terminator itself, it's flesh. It's like it's artificial flesh that's covering alloy metal endoskeleton, and of course, the Terminator in the second film explains all that stuff. He was the Model 101. But going into the second film, man, I man, that really set a really imprint on people's minds. The second one, really, that was, in my opinion, it elevated. It got better. The second one was the better one, in my opinion. I mean, the first one has its mark. I mean, that was the foundation, but they kicked it up on the second one. And the big baddie in the second one was the T-1000, which was a upgraded model Terminator, which was a liquid metal Terminator, played by what's his name? Robert Patrick, I believe his name was, the actor that played him. And I'm telling you, man, like, just the ominous themes that you hear being played throughout the second one. And Robert Patrick, just that face of his, man, he like I said, he really didn't have to talk at all if he didn't want to. And of course, there were scenes where he did talk, and then there were also scenes where he can mimic and copy other people. And just, my gosh, man, I remember like I said, this came out in the early 90s, the second one. So I was a kid when I saw this, man. So I wouldn't say it gave me nightmares, but it really left its mark, especially when you see the Terminator, the first one, when the skin burns off, and then you see him, chasing after Sarah, and just, man, it was just so menacing, man. And of course, they came out with their own video games, Terminator video games that I played. They were really, really fun. And I love how in the first film, was it the first one? No, it was the second film, how you get a glimpse of what the future looks like. They actually show a little bit of the future war going into it was like California, it was like Los Angeles, California, 2029, and they show it, and I love how just the set looks like, what it looks like. And this was back in the day where they build their own sets. You see like the different ships and all the wreckage and all the carnage and stuff, and I love like the lighting where everything looks like has like this bluish hue and all that stuff, and then you see all the Terminators walking around with those huge laser rifles and stuff like that. And it just looks really cool. That's one thing. Like I said, I say this over and over. I love how they used to build their own sets. In the older films before the CGI craze really took over. And just like Jurassic Park, the Terminator film 2, it's it really bridged the gap going into the digital age when you see all of and the reason why I say the Terminator 2 holds up mainly because of the T1000, the liquid model. And when you see, you know, the T1000 doing all the shape shifting and all that stuff, and how it fights using blades, shape shifting the hand and turn them into blades, and stabbing weapons and stuff like that. It just looks really cool. I can go back and watch it all the time. It really, really does hold up. And that's the one thing I say about, when you overdo CGI, like how they do films today, a lot of it is not going to hold up. A lot of it's not going to hold up when you overdo the CGI. But back in the day when when the CGI and the computer graphics was still in its infancy, they didn't overdo it. I mean, there were times, because like I said, if you can get something live, then why not? But the only special effect really, as far as the second film, it was just the two Terminators themselves, especially when they had the big fight at the end. The T1000 going against the Model 101, and of course Arnold, Model 101 just gets wrecked because it's an inferior model, and he gets tore up, gets one of his arms ripped off, and getting his head bashed and stuff like that. Yeah, like, I'm telling you, it's really like a horror film or a terror film when you really, really look at it, especially with the themes and stuff like that. It is crazy. I mean, the Terminators, both of them, they had one mission and one mission only. And I guess the Terminator is self-explanatory, really. But man, and it really didn't matter which one. It didn't matter if it was the first one or the second one. Obviously, I favored the second one. I think I speak for a lot of people for that, because it really, really kicked it up a notch. But I can go back and watch the first one as well. I mean, the difference between the first one and the second one, the first one had, I guess you could say, different depths into it in terms of horror, and it had like a little. Because the first one also had like kind of had like a love story with it as well, between Sarah and Kyle, which was pretty nice. Which was kind of a good way to step away from the carnage a bit, and then you can have your two of your leads, building up the tension and stuff like that, and it just goes to show you, even in the heart of chaos, there's still some peace that can be had there. So I like how the first film really conveys that. And Kyle explained it to her that during his time, it's just nothing but fighting. So it's very hard, I guess, to have those peaceful moments in his time. But when he goes back, it has like this little, act of peace and harmony and love with Sarah. It was. I enjoyed how they depicted that. It was showcased very well. And of course, and another thing which is pretty cool is how John Connor, in the future John, he tells Reese to go back, but obviously I don't think he never tells Reese that he is his son, because like I said, he has to go back and impregnate Sarah in order for for everything to happen. So it's crazy. And like I said, it's just weird how it all pans out. When Reese it was destined for Reese to go back because he and Sarah had to make John. So it's crazy how all that pans out. And then you see John in the second film, where he's like this kind of punk kid, and because of the events of the first film, obviously nobody believes Sarah, because of obviously she survives in the first film. Going into the second one, she survives, and the Terminator, I guess, was destroyed to the point where none of the evidence was left to be discovered. But obviously in the second film, when you see it, the people at Cyberdyne, they have the arm of the first model. So it was all on a hush hush. But of course, the outside world, knew nothing about what Sarah was saying. So she was being held in a psychiatric ward because obviously, because like I said, she pretty much was, I guess you could say, Kyle in the second one, about how nobody believed him in the first one, then nobody believed her in the second one. So she, knew that the Terminator was not going to go after her anymore. It was going to go after John because John was the key, to stopping. He was the key to lead, the war, the humans against the machines. So that's when the T-1000, goes after John, and then the T model 101, Arnold's model, goes and protects John. So it's crazy how they did that. You have two Terminators instead of one, and one is protecting and one is hunting them down. So that whole entire dynamic, when you see the action every time, the confrontation between the different models, it is crazy. It seems like the one-on-one model, he's just throwing everything that he can at the T-1000, and the T-1000 being liquid, he just absorbs just every bullet, every explosion, every blunt force, physical strike. It seemed that nothing seemed to work. But then you discover towards the end, when they finally defeat it, the only way to take it out was like extreme heat. And that's where kind of the ending, the final fight, the ending scene takes place. It takes place at the armory, where it kind of falls into the molten core of fire, and then kaput. But one of my favorite I can't even call it a scene. It's just something that the Terminator did when they had like the car chase, I guess you would say, in the second one. The Terminator, Sarah and John, they're all like in a little pickup truck trying to get away from the T-1000. The T-1000 is like in a 18-wheeler, and it kind of rams them from the back. What one-on-one model does, he gets onto the hood of the 18-wheeler, and he just lets loose. He has like this huge, big old machine gun. He just lets loose point blank at the the 1000, and then he tips the truck over. But like I said, man, the budget of these films, where they can just cause all this destruction, automobile wreckage and explosions, it's truly amazing. Like the budget that these studios have. Like to this day, I still don't know how they do it. It's just, I mean, and it goes like that in almost damn near every film that you see. Especially like Michael Bay films, man. All the explosions you see in his films. I mean, the budget is crazy. And this was back in the time, like I said, the late 80s, early 90s, but the budgets weren't as high as they are today. I mean, hold on, let me look this up. I believe the first Terminator film, the budget was only 6.4. I mean, I guess it was a lot considering 1984, 6.4, but the box office, it made 78.3 million. So I mean, it overachieved, man. Well overachieved, and I'm pretty sure the second film probably did even better. 'Cause, I'm trying to look this one up, because I think the second one didn't even better, because that is the one that a lot of people of my generation remember the most. Is probably the second one. The budget was much bigger in the second one, but it made, my gosh, man, the budget was between 94 to 100 million, and it made 519 million at the box office. Like, that is insane. I mean, Cameron, he knew what he was doing with that one. I mean, just two smash hits, man. I mean, like I said, this is James Cameron. I mean, there's nothing that he does do that doesn't make any money. I'm like, he made the Avatar films, the Titanic, like everything he does makes money, because all his films are just, I mean, he goes above and beyond. And like the films, I think the Avatar film that he did, it's probably one of the largest budgets. The most recent one he did, I think it has like one of the craziest budgets, I believe. But I'm pretty sure that made money. I mean, I haven't seen it, but yeah. But out of all of the films that he made, I would say the Terminator ones are probably the ones that I remember the most and hold dear. And of course, I love Sarah. How I mean, she is completely two different people. She's completely two different people in the first one. The first one, she's just this, this average woman. She's working, just trying to keep the bills paid, and she's just unaware of what's going on. And then she sees that this huge monster coming at her, and she's kind of like the, I guess you could say, the damsel, that Kyle has to protect and all that stuff. But towards the end, she does fight back and all that stuff, and it, especially when she loses Kyle, and it's just her. But in the second one, man, she is. I say the second one. That's the Sarah Connor that people choose to remember that one, and I don't blame them. Like she, but like Linda Hamilton did such a good job acting wise too. I mean, she is really very conflicted, and she doesn't know what she. I guess you can say she's not really sure of what she wants to do, because she believes that she just kills Dyson, the guy who created the Skynet. She believes if she just killed him, things will be, you know, the war won't happen. And then of course, John gets to her in time and convinces her not to do it. But just the emotions that she's going through during that scene, it's really really crazy. And then of course Dyson helps him. They go to Cyberdyne Systems headquarters, I guess you could say, and then they go there and try to destroy everything, because they convinced him what he was going to do in the future and what it was going to cause. So the basic premise is trying to prevent 2029 from happening, which they do. And I mean, I consider the old canon, because of course after T2, they made a plethora of Terminator films after that. You got like 3 and 4, 5. I can't even remember all of them, man. They just made a bunch of them. Yeah, I'm not gonna even try to name them. It's a bunch of them. But the first 2, those are the ones that people really remember, and I think a lot of people probably will agree that they should have stopped after the second one. But there were some that I didn't mind. Genesis was kind of interesting because it showed what the future war really looked like. I mean, they kind of went into depth with it. That one was pretty interesting. And I know a lot of people had their critiques about the latest one. I forget what it's called. And they had like some crazy looking Terminator model on that one. Forgot what it was called. And they actually put both of the Terminator models in the Gears of War game, which is pretty cool. They put Sarah Connor in there and the other 2 models in there, which is pretty cool. But yeah, man, and Terminator 2, great concept. Obviously, kind of nerve-wracking concept because we're approaching 2029, so it kind of makes you think about it. That's what makes these kind of post-apocalyptic, futuristic, stories, like thinking like, could something possibly happen like that in our world as we know it? And given the fact that we're so dependent on technology the way we are today, technology has advanced from the time I was born up until today, and I was born in the late 80s, and then going into today, everything is digital now. So we're so reliant on technology. So it kind of makes you think that how far can we go before we realize like, maybe we should slow down a bit, because AI, artificial intelligence, is very big right now. So who the hell knows, man? But all right, y'all, man, I'm coming up on my time here. I'm going to sign off. As always, man, I'm Bleak Nelson. Terminator, man. If you don't know, now you know. If you haven't seen it, as I always say, I recommend you go see it. But I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people who have already seen it. But even if you've seen it, go back and watch it some more, man, because a film like that never gets old, man. But all right, y'all, let me get out of here. Until we meet again, safe journey. Oos.